Okay, so this is a true story. I'm originally from Kentucky, and both sides of my family, as far back as anyone can see, are like outlaws and moonshiners and all that kind of crap. So, my mom, when she was a little girl, she was visited by, sorry, I'm going to start over. Okay, so this is a true story that my mom told me, and it was verified by all of the other cousins and stuff that were present. So my family is originally from Kentucky. It's full of outlaws and drunks and moonshiners and all sorts of nefarious people like that. So my mom's father, my grandfather, was murdered while my grandmother was pregnant with my mom. So my mom never got to meet her father until once when she was like 11, she was at a slumber party with all of her girl cousins, and this man came to the window. And my mom instinctively knew that this was her father, even though she'd never seen him or met him or whatever. So she goes to the window and opens it and has a little conversation with this man. And he said, "They said I could come and see you. They told me you would have hair like this, et cetera, et cetera." And they talk for a few minutes. And then the man walks away and my mom closes the window. Now it sounds like really fake, except that all of her girl cousins were awake in the room and saw it happen. And so that's my mom's visitation by her father.
Okay, I live in a very quiet and dark neighborhood. There's not a lot of street lamps, um, and it's an older neighborhood. When I first moved in this house 3 years ago, it was in October and it's close to Halloween. And maybe like the third or fourth night I was here, it was at night. I went out to go to my car or something in the driveway, open the front door, and I immediately hear this weird like staticky sound, like a sort of scrapey sound, and I see tree bark kind of showering down into my front yard. And there's some things, I don't know. At the time, I wasn't sure what it was. Like I'd like spooked them, and they'd run up the tree, something, some sort of creature, right? But a bunch of them, and I have like 3 or 4 trees in my front yard, and it seemed like it was coming from all of them. This like rustling, crazy sound, and all this bark raining down as they're climbing to get up. And I look. I live in a cul-de-sac, so I look directly across the street at the house across the cul-de-sac, and in the driveway of my neighbor's house across the street is, no lie, like 30 or 40 raccoons, just all sitting there looking at me. And then what was obviously up the tree was more raccoons, and I've never seen that many all at once. Like you'll maybe see one or two in this neighborhood trying to get into a trash can or something, but this was like, I don't know, 40 of them all at once, and yeah, they were all just staring at me. And then I was like, I guess this is how this neighborhood is. Um, Never happened again. Like it never. I've never seen a raccoon since. That was 3 years ago. It's weird. I don't know.
So, about a week ago, I was on a paranormal investigation at what is supposedly America's most haunted hotel, the Crescent Hotel in Eureka Springs. And during this paranormal investigation, we had several paranormal investigators there who had their own equipment, EMF readers and spirit boxes, as they're called. And so we were going to different areas of the hotel, different rooms and different basements, the different suites, and trying to talk to some of the ghosts that were there. And in one of the rooms, we sat down on a bed, and this room was known for having a cowboy who would come into the room, and this cowboy had died in the hotel, I think, like 100 years ago. Um, and so we had out these EMF readers, so electromagnetic field detectors. They basically detect electromagnetic field and tell you if there's a disturbance in the field near the reader. And I guess the idea is that ghosts, for some reason, set off EMF detectors. And so we also had something called like a spirit box. It scans through AM/FM radio stations quickly, and it kind of picks up noise, or it picks up different things that people are saying on those stations, And the idea is that a ghost would be able to talk to you through this by using that frequency to say something. And so we had this device that allowed us to scan through this, and AI would go through and it would try to pick out words that it thought were being said over the course of scanning, right? So basically you ask a ghost something, and if it responds, it'll say something on there. The AI will pick it up and give you like a word or a couple of a phrase or something like that. So we were sitting on this bed, and one of the paranormal investigators reached out her hand and said, I forget the cowboy's name, but she basically said, I just want you to come and touch my hand. And when she said that, the EMF detector started going off, and the little spirit box thing read winch. And we kind of nervously laughed. And she said, well, that's not very kind of you. It's not very nice. She said, you shouldn't say things like that to people. And then the EMF detector went all the way to red. And on the spirit box, it said angry and fury. And I think concern was another one. We had two of them beside each other. So it was kind of strange that these things were sort of responding. I don't know if I believe in ghosts really, but they seem to be responding to the things that we were asking them. There was another one where we were in a room upstairs. I actually stayed in this room one of the nights, supposedly the most active room. It's called Michael's room. And so there was a guy when the hotel was being built who fell from the top floor onto a beam into this room, and he died in this room. And we were sitting there, and we had, again, the EMF detectors, and this time we had two little cat toys that you would buy at like a pet store. They were small, about this big, clear, and they had a red button on top, and if you press the button, it turns it on. And what it does is when you touch it, it lights up, right? So cats can like hit it and it'll light up for a little bit. So what we did is we had two of them, and we set them on the bed, and we said, okay, we're gonna ask you some questions. If the answer is yes, light up this bulb, right? So you'd have to move it to light it up. If the answer is no, light up this bulb. And with the first question we asked, we said, is your name really Michael? And the yes ball lit up, and the EMF detector went off, which was really creepy. We asked a few more questions after that and didn't really get many more responses. But the fact that the first try, the motion detector, like cat toy, lit up, and the EMF detector went off, combined with everything else weird that happened that weekend, was pretty spooky. One other thing that happened during the paranormal investigation, once the investigation for the weekend was over, I actually had the opportunity to stay in Michael's room on Sunday night, and I had my keys, and I was trying to get into my room so that I could put my stuff away. And I put the key into the lock, and I tried turning it both ways, couldn't get it to work. I looked like an idiot doing this because there was also a group of people like standing. It looked like I was trying to break into the room because I was there for like a solid 2 minutes trying to get the key to work. And it's nothing fancy. It's one key and one lock, So I tried the other set of keys, had someone else try it, and we couldn't get it to open. And finally, I jokingly said, Michael, can we please get into our room? We're just trying to put our stuff up. Nothing happened. And then I said, well, I guess I mean your room. And as soon as I said your room, the lock clicked and the door opened.
So I used to live in this house that was pretty big, and I was just living in there by myself. And I would have at nighttime sometimes what people call sleep paralysis, where I would hear these footsteps just like come at me, and it felt like they were just pushing me down, and I couldn't turn to see what it was. And I would push so hard to like wake up because I knew it was happening. And this went on for maybe like 4 months. And then one night that pounding came from the door, jumped on my bed. I was able to like turn, and I grabbed this like demon creature. And as soon as I touched it, like the whole house turned into like a weird underworld where there was graffiti all over the wall, and there was smoke, and it was dark, and it was like, get out of my house, all this graffiti. And I grabbed this, I had this demon character, and I like ran down the stairs, and I was struggling, and I threw it out of the house and shut the door. And then I've never had sleep paralysis since then, which is weird as hell.
So I had just bought my first house a couple of years ago. It was like the middle of January, so low light all day and early sunsets and all that kind of stuff. So we picked up the keys, I think, at about 2 p.m. And then had come to the house, and it was already starting to get a little bit dark. And we wanted our friends to come and see it because we were really excited. Just moved in. House is completely empty. The people that lived here before taken all of the furniture. So, you know, it had that kind of mood where every single footstep like echoes around every room, and it's already a little bit spooky because it's just an empty house. So we were looking around and had this like really useful space under the stairs, and I peered at the back of this space, and there wasn't a light in there, so it was pretty dim. And I took out my phone and like turned the torch on and like pointed it back, and it was really weird because it's like this 1 foot wide space that just kind of is in a triangle down, and right at the back of it is this like tiny table and a tiny chair. And I'm talking a chair that somebody older than 6 could not sit at. This tiny child's chair at the back of this really useful storage space, but useless space to sit in. So that's already relatively creepy anyway. And then we're kind of showing our friends around, and we're going like, here's the bedroom, here's the spare room, here's the bathroom. And like, do you want to look in the loft? And my friend, who's like very superstitious, absolutely did not want to look in the loft, but I really wanted to look in there because I hadn't even looked in there myself yet. And like I said, because it was dark, we'd been like putting the lights on in every room as we went. And so I pulled the stairs down to the loft, and like I'm pulling them and like extending the ladder. And literally, as I put my foot on the bottom step of the ladder, the entire house went dark. Every single light in the entire house, like the power had just gone, and we like heard this weird noise. It was like a hiss, and then a sizzle, and then a whine, and then a pop. And it was really weird. And like I peered out, I immediately like ran to a window and looked outside. And there was nothing outside that gave any sign of something that could have happened. Every other house had all of their lights on. I came down and checked the switch box, and everything was still on. So it wasn't like the circuits had tripped or anything. We just had no idea what had happened. So I immediately, like as fast as I could, closed up the loft. We all agreed that we should just leave, lock the door behind us. And then the next day when I came back, just like everything was fine. And I've never had any issues since. I go up in the loft semi-regularly. It's a storage space. The only thing that I did decide to do was I never got rid of the weird, creepy little chair. I had said at the time of spotting it, I have to throw that away because that is too creepy and I cannot have that in my house. But once that happened, I kind of made a decision to just keep it, and it's still there, like behind a ladder and like empty boxes and places where we just keep like tools and garden equipment. That creepy little chair is still there, but we've not had any like electrical issues or anything. Just that one time, as soon as I was about to go up into the loft, the entire house, the power cut, and yeah, we just came back the next morning and it was fine.
Bueno, esto es una pesadilla que empezó cuando yo tenía como 11 años así, pero no llegó al final y se terminó años después.
So this is a nightmare that started for him when he was around 11 years old, but it didn't really resolve until many, many years later.
Entonces, empiezo contándola, es muy cinematográfica.
So he will start telling us about the story. It's very cinematographic.
Es como que el sueño empieza, yo pequeño no, y empiezo a ver simplemente como si la cámara estuviese enfocando al suelo.
So the dream begins with you know, when he was a child. So the dream begins with like the camera pointing at the floor.
Entonces, yo voy viendo que la cámara se va moviendo, es como la subjetiva de algo que están dando hacia adelante.
And the camera keeps moving while still focusing on the floor. So it feels like it's someone actually walking and looking at the floor.
Mientras voy escuchando la respiración de esa cosa que va avanzando.
While he can hear the breath of that creature walking.
Es una respiración como...
He breathes like, you know, the way he makes the noise is so much better than mine.
Entonces, la cámara sigue avanzando, siempre viendo el suelo, pero yo empiezo a identificar el camino por el que va pasando.
So the camera, you know, as the creature walks, the camera is still pointing at the floor, but him as a kid is already starting to identify the space.
Pasa por un camino de piedra que yo identifico hasta que me doy cuenta y digo, no, es que está yendo a mi casa.
So as the creature walks, he realizes that this is a stone floor that will end up in his house.
Entra en la casa, seguimos viendo el suelo. Mis padres viven en una casa grande de 2 pisos.
So the creature walks into the house. It's the house where he lived as a kid. It's the house from his parents. It's a 2-floor house.
La cosa sube las escaleras.
the creature walks up the stairs, making this noise.
Llega hasta mi habitación y se para justo en mi cara.
So the creature arrives to his childhood bedroom and keeps walking just until the creature arrives on top of his face.
Y como yo estoy, como todo el rato hemos ido viendo lo que ve el bicho o la cosa, en ese momento me veo a mí durmiendo.
So ever since we've seen from the beginning of his nightmare, we've seen everything from the point of view of the creature. When it arrives to the bedroom, he can see himself from the eyes of the creature.
Y en ese momento abro los ojos,
So he opens his eyes
grito, pero no se oye nada, estoy con la boca abierta.
and screams, but he can't hear anything. So it's just his mouth opening, but there's no sound.
Y ahí me despierto.
And then he woke up.
Este sueño se acaba
And that was the end of this
y
nightmare.
muchos años después
And many, many years after,
tengo exactamente el mismo sueño.
he has exactly the same dream.
La cámara, el camino, se mete en la casa de mis padres, sube.
So the creature walking the path, walking into his parents' house, walking up the stairs.
Se para en mi cama y ahora estoy yo de adulto.
So again, the creature stopped by his bed, but now it's him as an adult.
Abro los ojos,
He opens his eyes,
grito
he screams,
y de repente la cámara como que empieza a moverse como si fuese un péndulo.
and then the camera starts moving like from side to side,
Entonces va cogiendo velocidad cada vez más
every time more and more fast, like faster and faster,
hasta que da la vuelta entera
until it makes like a 360 move.
y ahí veo lo que es esa cosa.
And then he suddenly can see what that creature is.
Es una cosa que tiene cuerpo de vieja,
It's a creature, of course, with an old lady naked body,
totalmente desnuda, con una cabeza grande de cabra.
with a massive goat head.
Está justo encima de mi cabeza y
It's just in front of his face.
escupe y me entra dentro de la
No
boca.
sé cómo se dice escupe.
Echa
And it's-
saliva
So the creature spits and it falls onto his mouth.
y me despierto.
And then he wakes up, thank God.
The end.
If looking